don't know exactly how clean his intentions were, whether he was going to keep pursuing him or not outside. But one thing that kind of eggs him on here is Mira says, was it one of your eyes he took or one of your balls? That kind of like eggs him on further. After it's almost like he was going to stop for a minute, like after Lord Boris like gave the command, like, you know, none of this will happen here. But that like eggs him on further, and none of that's even mentioned at all in the show. And the last thing I have, and I'll turn it back over to Jay Nelly here. So it says that after this big fight went down, so there are a number of accounts that could have possibly thoughts that really on how Lucerys, the death of them, right? It says Arax, his head and neck washed up beneath the cliffs below Storm's End 3 days later to make a feast for crabs and seagulls. And it says Mushroom says Lucerys' corpse was washed up as well, and it was said that Aemon cut out his eyes and presented them to Maris, who I just mentioned. But some say Vhagar snatched Luke off the dragon's back and swallowed him whole. Some say that the prince Luke Lucerys survived the fall and swam to safety, but lost all memory of who he was, spending the rest of his days as a simple-minded fisherman. But it says the true telling Munkin insists is Lucerys died with his dragon and his body was never found. This was on the last paragraph of page 421 to the first paragraph of page 422. So the point being is we see there's a number of different accounts here on what happened. So you never see a body. So, you know, Jay Nelly is a big, you got to see the body kind of thing. And we never saw that in the show. So maybe, you know, at the very end of this series, I just picture almost like, you know, The Dark Knight Rises. Maybe they'll cut to Lucerys and he's just fishing on a dock somewhere. The series ends. I don't know. But back to you, Jay Nelly.
For sure. I do have a few differences here that I notated before we get to that part. On page 402, Sir Stephen Darkland is the one who stole the crown that both King Viserys and King Jaehaerys wore, slipped out of the city and escaped the Dragonstone to deliver the news. In the show, it was Sir Eric with an E. Now, page 402, Rhaenys was never there at King's Landing in the book, and she never escaped or went down to get her dragon to escape, or burst to the floor with the opportunity to incinerate all of the Greens. None of that happened in the book at all. That was a full-blown ad by the show. Cool ad, don't get me wrong, but it's just really funny how that huge moment that is one of the most memorable of season 1 on the screen actually never happened in the book at all. It just was a full-blown ad by the writers and the directors, and you know, I didn't hate it. I thought that was a good ad, honestly. From there, page 403, Rhaenyra's miscarriage on Dragonstone. The baby came out as a twisted, malformed girl with a hole in her chest where the heart should have been, and she had a stubby, scaled tail. In the show, it was just a standard miscarriage. Now, page 405, Rhaenys is going over the dragon count versus the Greens, where in the show it was Daemon going over the dragon count. Page 407, the Greyjoys are brought up. They don't make a reference to the Greyjoys as of yet in the show. So interesting. You know, I guess the Greyjoys were around back then. Page 409, Maester Orwell is the one that brings terms to Rhaenyra on Dragonstone. In the show, it's Otto Hightower himself. Page 410, Rhaenyra tells the Maester, tell my half-brother that I will have my throne or I will have his head. In the show, she actually considers the terms and tries to do things peacefully to avoid war if she can help it. Because this is what we were just talking about. This is the book really shows that she's ruthless, that she will do what she needs to do by any means necessary, which is not how she's portrayed in the show on screen. Now, page 410, there's an unconfirmed meeting between the Cargill twins, Sir Eric with an E and Sir Eric with an A, to try to convince the other to join the other side, and neither does, and they exchange heartfelt words, knowing that the next time they meet, it will be as enemies. And that's not shown in the show as of yet. And here between pages 412 and 414, I'm not going into detail because it's probably going to show it in Season 2, but they discuss Daemon's assignment, like I said, not yet shown in the show. Then pages 414 through the second paragraph on page 418, it discusses Jacaerys' assignment, also not yet shown in the show. And then, as Chase had alluded to, and I'll just go over it in just a little more detail, it was Maris, one of Lord Boros' daughters, that's to blame after Lord Boros had Lucerys escorted back to his dragon to avoid a fight in his halls between Aemond and Luke. Maris was upset that she wasn't the daughter chosen to be taken as Aemon's wife, and she says to Aemon, "Was it one of your eyes he took, or one of your balls? I'm so glad you chose my sister. I want a husband with all his parts." And that's what sets Aemond off in the novel, and that never happened in the show. None of the daughters are even brought up at all in Storm's End in season 1 of House of the Dragon. And then on page 421, just to kind of tie it all together, now Chase mentioned that there's a couple different theories of what happened to Lucerys after this battle, but the main thing it makes it seem as if Aemond killed Lucerys on purpose. In the show, it was clearly an accident due to Vhagar not fully obeying him, and you can even see Aemon's shocked look of surprise, like, "Oh fuck, what'd I just do?" type of, face that he gave at the very end of that. So that was the last difference that I notated between the corresponding sections of Fire and Blood and season 1 of the House of Dragon. So yeah, man, those were